other things last year, we submitted a proposal to the federal government to overhaul our health care system. We spend more in the state and get worse results. You know, we are the 4th worst state when it comes to non-emergency use of our emergency funds. We can save $350 million a year in thousands of lives by providing better access to primary preventive care. Unfortunately, in Louisiana, like so many states, we basically tell people if you don't have a job, we'll give you free health care. If you get a job, we won't help you. How in the world does that make sense? Over half the families that are uninsured in our country are in families with jobs. You go 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning to the emergency rooms, you're going to find families with kids who work during the day that can't afford to go see a doctor or a nurse. And that's ridiculous. We all pay when that happens. So we propose an overhaul of our healthcare system, sent it to the federal government to say, let's move away from a one-size-fits-all system. We want to increase coverage and access for tens of thousands of Louisianans by saying it's not all or nothing. But rather, we'll work with families to help them afford the coverage. If they can pay something, if their employer can pay something, we'll try to meet them partway. There were other things we did last year, but I want to talk to you a little bit about the results and then talk about the next year, the challenges we face next year. A little bit about the results. I've talked to you a little bit about the economic numbers. 3 companies moved their headquarters into Louisiana. We got a new Fortune 1000 company headquartered here. We got a new Fortune 500 company headquartered here, thanks to an acquisition. And just an example of some of the announcements, $350 million in clean coal technology in our state. The North America's first modular construction facility for the modular components for the nuclear industry, 1,400 jobs in our state. North America's first biodiesel refinery, the cleanest of its kind, uses food byproducts to make clean biodiesel. I love this announcement. The CEO and one of the former CEOs of Tyson Chicken was actually down here. It was Don Tyson himself. Came down and was explaining the whole process. He said, Governor, we're not even going to raise the cost of food. We're going to use the food byproducts to make diesel, and if you look at it, it's just as clear as water. He said, we're going to use all those inedible parts of the chicken to make fuel. I said, well, that's great. I just got one question. I understand this whole process, but what's the inedible part of the chicken? I thought you're supposed to eat the whole bird. He goes, no. There's fat and stuff that goes to the landfills. We're going to make diesel. I was excited. EA, Electronic Arts, announced they were putting their first North American Quality Assurance Center right here in Louisiana. We're now the 3rd best state in the country to make movies. Last year was a record year for Louisiana. We also want to set a record when it comes to growing the digital media economy. We know those jobs pay more, and it's growing even more quickly than the rest of the economy. There were other economic development announcements. This year alone, the last few weeks, you've seen the steel industry expand here. You've seen the healthcare industry announce expansions here. You've seen the Air Force that it can bring 1,000 jobs to Barksdale. You're seeing expansion announcements all over the state. So even in this national economy, we're able to outperform the national economy. Now, we're not immune to it. We know that we're going to face challenges, and certainly we need our national economy to recover. And I'll tell you, I absolutely believe our best days as a country and as a state are ahead of us, not behind us. I don't agree with all the policies in Washington. I do think that spending too much, I worry about the deficit we're passing on to our children and our grandchildren. But I'm a complete optimist about America's future. We've overcome greater challenges before, and I know we'll overcome these challenges. I do think part of it, and I won't talk to you too long about our national economy, I do think part of it is we've got to break our addiction to debt, both as a country and as a society. You know, when you look at the trillions of dollars that are being incurred, our children, our grandchildren pay for that. The value of our currency is at risk, the interest rates, the inflation rates are going to be at risk. But it's more than just what happens in D.C. It's also in our society, we've got to break that addiction to debt. If there's any silver lining of the challenges we face as a country, this economy, hopefully when we come out of this, as our economy starts growing again, you'll see more responsible and healthier attitudes. The attitudes our parents taught us. We all remember our parents taught us to live within our means. We all remember that our parents taught us that if you paid off your mortgage, that was a great thing. You didn't just go look out and try to find a new loan. And so there's some things, hopefully, that'll be good for our country in the long term if we'll accept those same values our parents live by and try to teach us. I want to shift gears a little bit, though, and talk about next year in our state. The reality is we face some challenges in Louisiana. This year's budget we proposed to the legislature is 10% overall. It's smaller than last year's budget, 13% smaller when you look at state colleges. We're going to have to do more with less. And this coming week, next week, Monday in the Senate, there are 3 bills coming up in the Senate Finance Committee I think are some of the most important bills of this session. And these bills are going to help us to make sure we're responsible stewards with our dollars. We propose 5 basic reforms to make sure that as we do more with less, we're not always cutting higher education and healthcare first. What's happened in our state is over $3 billion have been dedicated to almost 400 different funds, statutory and constitutional funds. So every year when it's time to balance the budget, they cut healthcare and higher education, added jobs. January, February, and March. More people were working in Louisiana than any January, February, or March in our state's history. So part of the good news is that a lot of bad news is wrong. Now that doesn't mean we're immune to the national economy. It does mean we've outperformed it. And I want to share with you today why that's so, but then also tell you what we need to do to continue moving the state forward. Now, here in this parish, you saw Burson move their headquarters from Rhode Island here. You saw Seco expand their operations here. You've seen many good developments right here in Livingston Parish, right here in Louisiana. But let me start with 3 big steps we took last year that I believe have helped us to add jobs even while the country is losing jobs. And it seems hard for me to believe that it's been over a year since I've been your governor. But it was such a privilege to take that oath of office. And one of the things I promised you on the steps of the Capitol back in January of last year was that we would create a new Louisiana. A Louisiana where we stopped exporting our greatest assets. Our greatest exports, it's not the oil, the gas we're drilling, it's not the products we're making, it's not even the crops or the wood that we grow. Our greatest exports for too long have been the sons and daughters of Louisiana. They've been leaving Louisiana year after year for several years now, looking for academic and economic opportunities in other states. I promise you we create a new Louisiana so they can pursue their dreams here. I promise you we create a new Louisiana so we bring back the risk takers, the entrepreneurs, and others. You know, I'd love to tell you that day that everybody was paying attention to my speech when I said that. But I've got 3 young children. I know better than that. At the time, the oldest was about 6. My 2 boys were 3 and 1. You know how tough it is to get your kids to behave? You go to church or a restaurant. Can you imagine when you're on the steps of the Capitol in front of thousands of people? My kids know I can't spank them in front of all those people. They weren't listening to Daddy's speech. They were running all over the Capitol. They were doing everything but sitting still. But you know, there was something that got their attention. I was done speaking at noon. And right at noon, there's a man named Deacon John that got up to sing, God Bless America. I can't sing to save my life. The Bible talks about making a joyful noise to the Lord. I can do that. But I can't sing. Now this man, he could sing. He got up, he sang, God Bless America. And as he was singing those high notes, it gives me goosebumps to think about it. Out of nowhere, these F-15 planes flew over the state capitol even as he was singing. You couldn't have timed it better. It was like out of a movie. My little 3-year-old boy, he didn't hear anything Daddy had said. But he saw those planes. His head was up in the sky, his eyes, mouth were wide open, stood there just for minutes watching what the planes did. Finally, they said the benediction. I said, Sean, son, come on, it's time to go. It's done. We got to go. He finally moved. The first thing he says, Dad, make them do it again. Son, I can't do that. So instead, he comes to my office on the 4th floor. The first time there, he's got his head stuck to the window, just staring at the sky. I said, son, come eat lunch. What are you doing over there? He said, Dad, when do you think those planes will come back? I said, son, if you behave, they'll come back. They'll come back in 4 years.